I'd like to call this meeting to order. Ms. Byram, may I have roll call, please?
Mrs. Anderson,
Here.
Mrs. Dawson,
Here.
Miss Harrington, Mrs. Quintern,
Here.
Mr. Rickett. Here. Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the presence of a quorum.
May we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we stay standing and have a moment of silence? Obviously, this week is 9/11, and then also the mass shootings that we've experienced over the last few weeks. So, please. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have an adjustment to the agenda. Ms. Harrington asked if we postpone the proposed policy revisions till our next meeting. Is there any other changes to the agenda?
No, ma'am, other than just what to do with 8A as well. I know those are additional policies, but I think if those are just for discussion tonight, or just wasn't sure how to address 8A.
Ms. Quintern, did you have any?
I would move that we just postpone all of the policy discussion until the next meeting.
Okay, all right.
So move to approve the agenda as amended.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you. Over to you, Dr. Horner.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. I'm going to begin this evening with a few recognitions, and I'd like to invite Dr. Wolfrey, if you would be willing to come forward. And we have some special recognition for our friends at Unionville and Lightfoot. Judy?
Good evening. I'm pleased to recognize an outstanding team from Unionville Elementary and Lightfoot Elementary. I'd like to invite them to join me if they would. So first of all, we have our principals, Marilee Grubb and Amy Jakubik, and three of our teachers, Kimberly Grant, who's a special education teacher, Pam Wayne, who's a 5th grade teacher, and Andrea Stingo, who is a 2nd grade teacher. This team is being recognized for their work over the summer. They attended the National Institute for Excellence in Teaching. This conference was focused on supporting the implementation of our adopted high-quality instructional materials for literacy. It also provided invaluable training on strengthening professional learning communities. Thanks to an additional Title I grant that was awarded in the spring, this dedicated team was able to attend the conference and gain insights and strategies that they will now bring back to their respective schools and work together K-5 to ensure effective implementation for our students throughout their career at Unionville and Lightfoot. This collaborative approach with alignment between the schools is especially important to support our students. The team's efforts will undoubtedly enhance the educational experience and outcomes of those students and their families. We would like to commend the Unionville Elementary and Lightfoot Elementary joint team for their commitment to professional growth and excellence in teaching, and thank you all for your dedication to advancing literacy education for our students here.
All right, Mr. Finger, nothing like putting you on the spot the minute you walk in.
Oh, I'm ready.
But if you want to make your way to the podium, we can do your recognition next.
Sure.
All right, Lee, thanks.
Oh, it's in the middle now.
Now you're really on the spot.
All right, well, good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Hornig, members of the board. It is good to be here tonight to recognize someone very special here. I'm going to ask her to come on up because I'd like to say these nice things with her here at my side. I have the pleasure of elevating an important LGPS parent and community member, Miss Brooke Martin, who you may recognize as an LGPS past PTA president and family member, has shown exceptional dedication to our school community. As the former LGPS PTA president, she established solid systems that continue to benefit LGPS, leaving a lasting impact on parent-teacher collaboration. Her commitment extends beyond this role as she now serves as a substitute teacher, regularly supporting Locust Grove Primary School classrooms and maintaining safe learning environments. And I believe you've been with us just about every day this school year. We appreciate that. Ms. Martin, her love for Locust Grove Primary School students and staff is evident in all her efforts. Her work within the school system is an investment in both her family's future and that of her entire community. Her transition from PTA leadership to hands-on classroom support exemplifies the spirit of community involvement and educational support that is integral to students' success here at Orange County Public Schools. So we thank you very much, Brooke, for everything that you do. This is for you.
Congratulations, Ms. Martin.
You're welcome.
All right, Marshall, do you want to address these individually, and then we'll bring the entire group over then at one time?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Hornick. Please let everybody stand. I'd like all my team to stand here. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tonight I'll come before you to recognize my work family, my small department, the fine young men and girl. We first beside me represent the facilities maintenance department. This past summer was probably the most demanding summer for our department since I joined OCPS in 2020. We not only completed hundreds of work orders, but completed many in-house projects. Let me introduce you to all of them, starting with Linda Grayson, our administrative professional who keeps us all in check day in and day out. Linda's list of duties and accomplishments would take up more time than we have this evening during her time here within the department. She is a master at record-keeping, organization of all things here in the office, and I don't even want to begin thinking about her retiring with us anytime soon. Next, we'll move on to Brian Crane and Jamie Burkhead. Guys, please raise your hand as I call your name, okay? Our in-house electricians, these two fine young men handle our electrical needs with power, lighting, electrical safety, to include security cameras, and help me with the water management plan. Next, we have Guy Davis and Ron Smith, please raise your hands, who handle the majority of our plumbing, masonry, floor work, painting, carpentry, and roof repairs, including the water management plan. Next, we have Doug Hyatt here, who handles all the water testing, life safety equipment, custodial equipment repair, low voltage electrical, building records, appliance installs and repairs, electrical and plumbing. Corey Profit is our in-house locksmith, fabricator, welder, carpentry, door repairs, electronic access control, electrical and plumbing. Next, Mr. Bill Pickerton takes care of our grounds equipment, sports fields, recycling, and turf management. Not here this evening is Jamie Verling, who joins Mr. Pilkerton on our team with field of work coming from Orange County High School as the previous head custodian just last week. Mike Shoemake, and not here with us tonight, Jake Bernard, handle all the controls, servicing, repairs to heating, cooling, kitchen equipment, walk-in coolers, dishwashers, warmers, steamers, associated gas-powered equipment. And then lastly, as you know, Marty Pitts was just recently selected as a new project specialist for facilities and maintenance. His previous position was working with Mr. Davis, handling the majority of our plumbing, masonry, floor work, painting, carpentry, and roof repairs. Let me close.
Marshall, I'm going to just put you on the spot. Would you be able to list some of the certifications that these gentlemen hold.
Most definitely.
Pretty impressive list.
Most definitely. Ready. Marty starting off with a Class B contractor's license. Also land, help me with it, Marty.
RLD, certified RLD.
Yep. Certified RLD, land disturbance. Corey Profit, certified locksmith, with also the electronic access control. Mike Shoemake, master gas fitter. Ron Smith, Class A contractor's license. Brian Crane, master electrician. Doug Hyatt, certified waterworks operator. Those are some
Awesome.
Recognized certifications. Also, Jamie Burkhead and Guy both have the water management plan training and that certification with helping with the water management plan that's important by the state.
Marshall, I don't mean to interrupt, I just wanted to thank all of y'all. The amount of work that a dozen of y'all get done absolutely blows my
Incredible.
mind. It is unbelievable, and especially as spread out of a county that we are. So it's not just, hey, going 5 minutes from one school to the next school. So thank all you guys for everything that you guys do, and the weekends, the nights, all of that stuff. And like I said, a dozen. And I would be remiss. Linda, it's terrific to see you. Terrific to see you here, and I know that you keep everybody in line.
These are the hardest working guys you will ever know. Each one of them is like a brother, and the brotherhood with Marshall's direction, it's just wonderful to be
Yep.
here. It really is. We have our ups and downs and all, but nobody works harder than these men.
Yep.
Nobody works harder
Yeah.
than these guys.
Thank you all very much.
And then Marshall, I had a chance last week to, Representative Spanberger hosted a forum on workforce development, and they offered me a chance to speak for 10 or 12 minutes. And one of the things that I highlighted specifically for Guy and Ron was our new internship program that, Marshall, you worked on a lot with Renee and Ellen, and were able to bring it to fruition. And now we have young high school seniors who are doing their first 2 blocks in the school, and then coming and learning from you all in the field as certified professionals. And I know, Marshall, you spent a lot of time making that happen. And I just think it's really impressive. And that program will grow because you see quite a bit of in-house expertise in front of you this evening that we can harness that power and teach the next generation as well. So I'd like to thank you all for diving into that with us and taking a chance at doing something different and doing something new. So that's also a feather in all of your caps. So thank you all.
Got it.
Thank you, gentlemen. I notice they're all smart. They're getting out of here before I get them some more work to do. Right, Guy? Yeah.
6 a.m. comes early.
Yeah.
6 a.m.
Yeah. And Madam Chair, thank you all very much. That's all this evening for our recognitions.
Thank you, Dr. Hornick, and thank you, everyone. Just a couple of announcements for this month. They're all kind of basic, but kind of wanted to bring some light to some of the events that are happening in the community and then also in our schools. Patriots Day is on September 11th for all schools.
Yep.
We have a parent-teacher conferences, early dismissal. Parent-teacher conferences are in the PM on September 19th. And then a student holiday, parent-teacher conferences in the AM on September 20th. And then on September 29th, we have the Celebration of Education hosted by the Ed Foundation. So there's just a couple of events that are going on. So administration here, if you have any other things you would like us to announce, please feel free to forward those to Laura or myself or Dr. Horning.
I think, Greg, it might be worthy, a worthwhile topic. We were talking about parent-teacher conferences and the work that you spearheaded along then with Judy and Renee to bring forward what we know will be an easier across the division platform for parent-teacher sign. I don't know if you just want to speak to that briefly, because that call went out this evening and parents are getting letters home in their backpacks today about it, so probably would be good information.
So our Parent-Teacher Advisory Committee had voiced, not concern, but we're looking for a solution to better schedule those parent-teacher conferences, especially when they had children at 2 and possibly 3 or 4 schools, to be able to have one place to go that was consistent, because prior to rolling out what we just put in place, it was this school does this and this school does that, and it was very difficult to kind of juggle. Geez, did I sign up at 2 on this page? So we looked for solutions for that to help parents with that scheduling. And what we landed on was a product called PTC Wizard, Parent Teacher Conference Wizard. It's a very clean format. It allows them to see in one schedule, if you've got 3 schools and you schedule in your first school for a 2 o'clock appointment, it then says you can't have any 2 o'clocks at your next school that you're looking at because you already have something signed up there. So it's really going to help facilitate that. You can view it on, it's web-based, so you can view it on your cell phone. You can do it through a computer. It really should help facilitate. I was already looking through, and a lot of people have already started signing up for that. So we think this is going to be a great tool for our parents and our teachers for getting those scheduled meetings in, which are so important to everybody.
Thank you, Greg.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board.
All right, moving on. Wait, why did I just do that? All right, I'm going to open public comment. The Orange County School Board recognizes the importance of maintaining a respectful and orderly environment during school board meetings. Therefore, we kindly request that all comments made are relevant to the field of pre-K through 12 public education and pertain to the matters concerning the school board and division. We ask that individuals refrain from using offensive language, engaging in vulgar or profane behavior, or making comments or taking action that may incite violence or disrupt the peace. Unless otherwise authorized by the chair, each speaker is allotted a maximum of 3 minutes to express their views. To uphold decorum, we also kindly request that applause, noise-making, or other disruptive behavior be avoided before, during, and after a member of the public addresses the board. It is important to note that the public comment is intended for addressing the school board, and therefore comments should be directed solely towards the board members. Furthermore, it is expected that the board members refrain from engaging in dialogue with the speakers during this time, as it is an opportunity for the board to actively listen to the thoughts, concerns, and feedback of the public. Any conduct that violates the established decorum and order as determined by the chair or their designee may result in disciplinary actions, including potential expulsion from the meeting. Alternatively, written comments may be submitted to board members via email. It is crucial to emphasize that these guidelines are not intended to restrict freedom of speech, but rather to ensure effective communication between the public and their public servants. We eagerly anticipate your valuable contributions and feedback. Thank you. Ms. Byram, do we have any speakers signed up?
Yes, we have one, Miss Sarah Yeager.
Thank you.
Good evening. I first of all want to thank the longest standing members of this board for encouraging my engagement and close analysis of school board governance. I know that the politicization, governance, as well as local, statewide, and national attention you've brought to Orange County Public Schools has inspired many parents, such as myself, to better scrutinize the actions of our public officials. I have several concerns with the proposed policy recommendations that you have now postponed. First of all, as a parent, I'm diligent about reading the papers sent home at the beginning of the year, but it's a lot. We're human. Sometimes key paperwork falls through the cracks. The revisions to policies IGAE, IGAF, and IGAG make health education classes opt-in only. If a parent doesn't understand this, their child by default will miss health education entirely. Please keep this as an opt-out policy. This way you're not denying parents their rights, but also not denying children education they need. If you update policy BDDH as proposed, students will only be allowed to attend school board meetings, let alone speak at them with written parental permission. Is this going to be another form sent home at the beginning of the school year? Will it be clear to parents that if they don't give permission, their child will also not be allowed to attend a school board meeting where they may receive an award or recognition? The proposed change to policy AC on non-discrimination is just rehashing gender identity culture war politics that you attempted and failed to pass previously. This frankly allows for discrimination against students and staff with gender misidentification, forcing them to only be grouped with their genders assigned at birth. I know it falls on deaf ears to the majority of this board, but it's exhausting how doggedly you insist on continuing to fight culture wars to the detriment of actual education. Thank you, Ms. Anderson, for informing me of the non-refundable $400 deposit of our tax dollars that went to the canceled board retreats location. I beg this board to reschedule the retreat to this exact TIAC room. It's free. You all wanted to go out of town where the money wouldn't even go back into our tax base, and I know that town council has their retreats in their normal meeting room. It's just a longer meeting. Having it here at no additional cost to the school budget will also show your dedication to transparency and fiscal responsibility. I look forward to the upcoming meetings where the chickens will come home to roost, as they say. It appears that Ms. Quintern has put a lot of work on herself, the administrators, and legal counsel's plates to write these numerous policies and in their revisions that you'll now review again. The truth will be in the numbers of how much that has all cost.
All right, since there are no other speakers, I will close public comment. All right, moving on. Consent agenda. Monthly operating bills. Sorry, my screen is too small. All right, I was able to review those. I will make a motion to approve the food service report, financial report of August 2024, monthly operating bills August 2024, and the draft April 15th minutes.
A second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. And then we have a conflict on October 8th.
7th.
Sorry, 7th.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, my son's making his confirmation, so I guess I should be there.
So would the 8th, the Tuesday the 8th, work for everyone, or one other day that week, or do we want to schedule it for the following week?
I'm open either way.
I'm good with the 8th.
I'm good.
All right. So we
Thank you all.
at 7th meeting to the 8th of October.
Thank you for your flexibility. Appreciate that very much.
All right, moving on. Action items. Dr. Horner.
Yes, ma'am. So we will go to 5B. And we had previously Mr. Honecker with the ability to have an authorization to sign in my absence. And now that he has since retired, I would like to add Miss Lisa Frady-Lawhorn to the list So it would be her and Susan who would be continuing. And we need board approval for this, and we send it to the DOE. So they have a copy of the official school board approval acknowledging who we have identified as authorized signatories in my absence. And again, so the change here would be removing Mr. Honaker, who is retired, and adding Ms. Frady Lawhorn. Ms. Ayler is already in and approved.
I move to approve the removal of Mr. Honaker and the addition of Ms. Lisa Frady Lawhorn, the Chief Financial Officer, to the list of designees authorized to sign or authorized department documents in the absence of the division superintendent through January 31st, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you all very much. Next, I will bring forward Mr. Hill, who has a presentation for surplus property in the realm of technology. Greg?
Evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Hornick. As I have in past months, these are items that we have that are considered surplus through the technology department. We can collect it over the summer and even into the end of the school year. And I'm asking for approval of these items so that we can e-waste them in some cases, but also get a little bit of return on some of the items that are on here, which it isn't a lot, but it is something, and it helps us to go right back into technology purchases. I would ask, too, that if possible, you approve this evening. We've got quite a collection of things that we'd like to get the process started sooner rather than later. So with your permission, I'd like to be able to start that now.
Madam Chair, if you would accept a motion, I would move to approve the recommendation to declare the technology equipment as surplus property for disposal.
Do I have
Second.
all those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, members of the board. Next, I will bring forward Lisa Frady Lawhorn. And Lisa, I believe the next two are both under you. One is the carryover funds request, as well as a supplemental appropriation, I believe tied to our pre-K programming and Head Start. Lisa, I'll turn it over to you.
Good evening. We have several carryover items from 24. We have the grant VTSS revenue that's been received that was not expensed. That's 2002-12. We have the capital for the tennis course, the $438K. The needs closet, which is donated as well, $8,949. We have the McKinney-Vento ARP grant carryover. That's $15K. We have an invoice that came through that's $2,500 that was for 2024, did not get in here before June. And that is for the University of Virginia enrollment projections that they did. We have Head Start, the USDA Nutrition Fund, that we had $14K left over. Open purchase orders, that most of the work has been done, but we did not receive the invoices as of June 30th, that's $300. And then there's Medicaid, which is $35K that we would like to carry over as well.
So to clarify, these are all expenditures that they are appropriated, but we just haven't spent the funds yet, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions?
No, Madam Chair.
All right. Okay. Would you like to go
Good.
on?
Okay.
Thank you.
We also have an appropriation. It's COLA funding, cost of living, for Head Start that has come in for $40,123. That is an addition.
Are there any questions on that one?
Give me a little bit of background. What is COLA?
Oh, COLA is the cost of living expense that they do increase it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, if you would accept a motion, I would move to approve items B and C as presented.
Okay. I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Appreciate that. And finally, this evening, a few weeks back, I alerted the board to an invitation to bid. And we are here this afternoon, Marshall, in particular. And this is for our next round of custodial supplies. Marshall, I'll turn it over to you.
Correct. Thank you, Dr. Hornick, Madam Chair, members of the board. Went out on an invitation for bid. We had 3 bidders, and I'm happy to report that our current vendor that we had the contract with for the last 5 years is low bidder again. That company is called the Supply Room out of Ashland, Virginia. The representative for that company has actually served OCPS for over 40 years. This contract is important enough that surrounding counties, including Woodbury, utilize and ride our contract to get this best pricing. And because there's Madison, Culpeper, and then the Woodbury school, and then us, because of the amount of volume of paper products and plastic products that we buy, the manufacturer gives a price cut to the supply room, which passes that on to us, which is why none of the other 2 companies could compete with the pricing. So I'm asking for you to review or let me know if you have any questions, and let's continue the move forward to approve it, please.
What was the amount of the bid?
So this is you purchase as you go.
Okay.
So there's a list of products that we buy, and they individually price the products. And I don't have that list for Laura, I don't believe, but I can get that to you.
Yes, that'd be great.
Not a problem.
Yep.
Yeah. And the bid tab, if you'd be interested in that.
Yep.
Understood.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Marshall. Appreciate it. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. And then next this evening, I'd like to bring forward Ms. Linda Blair for a food services report from summer 24. Correct, Linda?
Good evening, Dr. Hornick, Madam Chair, members of the board. Thank you for this opportunity to tell you about our seamless summer and how wonderful it was. We had a great time serving our kids breakfast and lunch for free during the summer months of June and July for kids age 1 to 18. Each of our kitchens were staffed with a cafeteria manager to make sure that we had good quality food. In June, breakfast and lunch were provided for students attending all of the summer school sites. In addition, each site was open for families to bring their children for breakfast and lunch each operating day. Then weekend meals were distributed on Thursdays. People could come and pick them up for their family to bring home to use at home. And the kids that were in summer school had the opportunity to bring home a weekend meal with them. We partnered with transportation to make sure it was okay to bring them on the buses. After June 13, when summer school ended, we continued our summer meal program through July 25th at Teak, Gordon Barber, and Locust Grove Elementary School, so that we were hitting various places of the county on both ends, basically. So there, our sites were open to the community to bring their kids in for breakfast and lunch, and also weekend meal kits were distributed again every Thursday to bring home to the family. Along with our community students' meal distribution, our district provided summer meals to Boys and Girls Club, Head Start, Early Head Start, Academic Scholar Institute, ELS, and summer school enrichment classes. We provided on-site breakfast and lunch meals for children in these programs and weekend meal kits each Thursday. Our 10 summer food service locations served a total of 22,610 meals. Our goal was to increase our summer meal partition by 10%, but we exceeded that goal, and the increase was over 80%. And this is primarily because of the weekend meal distribution and the fact that the kids could take their meals home for the weekend on Thursday when they left summer school. That was a big part of the increase. Our outreach included school site, yard signs, social media, website information, posters at schools and at the health department, flyers to post at local businesses, and that big banner in the intersection in front of Teak. So we look forward to reopening our program again next summer. Any questions?
Great job.
Yeah, terrific work.
Thank you.
80% increase.
I didn't expect that.
Well, that means there's a need,
Mm-hmm.
and you helped fill that need. The only other thing I was going to add is just thanks for you and your team and all the hard work through that. I'm just going to call it the water issue.
Oh, yeah.
You know, thanks for everything. You guys were, you know, juggling a lot and helping, and to all the principals that are here as well. You know, I understand the entire division, even though it was the eastern part of the county, the entire division was impacted. So thanks to all of you guys for all that work during that challenging time.
We learned a lot.
Yes. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Blair. Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. Next, we have some wonderful folks here this evening. I'll start with Dr. Wolfrey, who will come forward. And we are looking forward to presenting our accreditation report for our elementary schools. And this will be followed up in 2 weeks with our accreditation report for our secondary schools. Judy?
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Hornick. Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board. Tonight, I'll be sharing accreditation results for our elementary schools. This is this year's accreditation status based on last year's assessments. So I'll give a brief overview, and then each of our principals will share the results for their school as well as their strategies for the coming year. So what you'll see is very similar to what you saw last year, but this is really just a review for you and an overview. State accreditation is based on multiple factors. First of all, student achievement, and that's based or measured by our standards of learning assessment results, which also include student growth. And those can be determined either by the current year's results or an average over the past 3 years, depending on whichever of those is highest is what the state applies for accreditation. And also considered is attendance, and the measure for attendance is chronic absenteeism. Schools are expected to have 15% or less chronically absent students, and chronic absenteeism is 10% of the school days or more. So the quality indicators are listed here again for the subject areas of reading, math, and science in grades 3 through 5, the SOL tests associated with those subjects, and then chronic absenteeism. So you can see here the overall pass rate by students and by subgroup. The benchmarks for math and science are 70% and for reading 75%. When establishing the ratings, the state applies levels of indicators, 1 through 3, with 1 being at the standard or above, and 2 being near the standard or sufficient improvement from a level 3. And sufficient improvement is considered a reduction in the failure rate of 10% or more. And then level 3, which is below the standard, or performance at a level 2 for 4 more consecutive years. And so you see the breakdown under each of those for the percentages for the pass rates that are required for each of those ratings. This year, 100% of our students, all of our schools are accredited, with the exception this year of 3 of our schools being accredited with conditions, Locust Grove Primary, Unionville, and Lightfoot. And those are primarily based on science performance this year. So you'll hear more about that in each of the presentations. Science, of course, that was tested at Locust Grove Elementary, and Locust Grove Elementary had a waiver for this year. If schools have a waiver, then that allows them to be accredited for 3 years. In the spring, following the assessments, all of our schools were engaged in conducting needs assessments. We did this at the division level as well. While doing those needs assessments and analyzing the data, each of the school teams really tried to drill down to what are the root causes that contributed to the performance of the students, and then determined what strategies they could apply to improve the results and the learning of our students. And then from that point have developed an improvement plan, and they'll continue to implement many things that you'll hear about tonight. Many of these strategies they've already implemented, and they'll begin to monitor those as we go through the year and adjust accordingly. So this is a continuous process, not just something that's done at the beginning of the school year. So our schools started in the spring. They continue that work over the summer with their teams again upon the return to school, and this will be a continuous process throughout the year. Again, all of those strategies revolve around what you see at the center of our instructional model, which is making learning engaging, relevant, and rigorous for our students, as well as the 5 C's that we've talked about many times. As you hear from each of the principals tonight, you're going to see some consistent themes across the schools, beginning with a focus on attendance. In the past year, we've really focused on increasing our communication to parents regarding the importance of attendance and really tight monitoring of students' attendance and reaching out to make sure that we're supporting families and putting plans in place to make sure our students are at school. The principals will share some of the successful practices that they've implemented and what they plan to continue to do this school year. We had a committee that was focused on attendance last year, made up of division level leaders and school leaders, and a lot of the practices came out of the work of that committee, and then were also brought forward in policy to you recently. And then around achievement, you'll hear a lot of information related to the types of professional development and training that's being provided to our new teachers as well as returning teachers. This includes our new standards in both language arts and math, as well as our new instructional program for literacy. You'll also hear quite a bit about assessment and ongoing assessment, not just at the time of unit assessments, but along the way by our teachers, as well as our work with professional learning communities to analyze student data and make adjustments to instruction. And then finally, all the practices around sound instruction for our students, everything from collaborative planning among our teams to principals' efforts to provide feedback to teachers, whether it's on their written lesson plans or their observations as they walk through classrooms, our intervention programs, and then our work on tutoring in order to make sure that our students who need additional support are provided that. With that introduction, I'd like to hand it over to Dr. Oliver Eggert from Locust Grove Elementary School. She'll share a report from her school and some strategies. Yes, sir.
Okay. Attendance.
Yes,
So how do you feel? How do you think we're doing?
We're going to show those results coming up. I
want to know what you think
we've
and
made
how we're doing
Sure.
as far as, so, when I was running, attendance was a big issue.
Yes.
And now being on the board, it felt the early couple of months, it was a big issue. Then we went into the summer. So do we feel like that we're getting our arms around it a little bit, or is it still a challenge? I mean, what do you think?
We're definitely making progress. You'll see from the results and the reductions in the chronic absenteeism. We're still working very hard on how do we get students who are those students who continue to struggle with attendance. So what are the barriers to that, and how do we work through that and get students, one, supported in terms of their instruction and their success academically, because that promotes attendance, as well as what are other ways we can link them to school and make sure that they feel connected to the staff at school and the other activities that are going on there. But I think you'll see from the results from this past year that our attendance has improved dramatically.
How's the communication? So there's a lot more communication to the parents about being absent.
Yeah.
How is that being received, perceived?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Kind of the campaign for attendance has several levels. One, Dr. Hornick has done quite a lot of work in getting that out through all of the avenues in which he speaks or messages that he delivers. The principals have also sent out a lot of personalized messages to their families as well as written communication. There are a lot of individual follow-up with families made by phone calls from the school, and then plans or meetings to help work through some of those challenges to having students at school regularly.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, you'll hear a lot more detailed information from each of the principals as well. And then at the end,
I had a feeling the numbers were going to go down. I still just wanted to know what your gut was telling you.
I'm very encouraged by it. I'm excited to know that we're getting more of our students to school regularly. We have to have them here in order to teach them. So we're
Correct.
headed in the right direction. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So I'd like to invite Dr. Oliver Eggert to come up.
Thank you, Dr. Wolfrey. Good evening, board. Thank you for having us here. I am Eileen Oliver Eggert. I'm the principal at Locust Grove Elementary. I'd like to also introduce my leadership partner and assistant principal, Ms. Sonia Walsh, and then our sister school leadership, Mr. Finger and Dr. Weaver. You'll see as we go through the presentation that since we have a shared school community, the data that you see for Locust Grove Elementary is shared by Locust Grove Primary as well. So first, what you see here is our school quality indicator. So as Dr. Wolfrey mentioned, under academic performance, there were three main areas that grades 3 through 5 are credited through. Those include English, math, and science. On the far left, you'll see that the Locust Grove schools are a level 1 for all students in English and math, meaning that we were at 75% or higher in English, 70% or higher in math. However, you will see that science is an area of need. We were a level 3, which means that we were below the minimum standard. Under achievement gaps, this is where, for accreditation, they look at our gap groups. So students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged students, Black students, and groups like that are what is looked at under achievement gaps. For English, you see that we're a level 1, so we met or exceeded the minimum requirement, whereas in math, we were a level 2, and that was primarily due to students with disabilities not meeting the minimum benchmark. And then for chronic absenteeism, you can see that both schools, the primary and the elementary, were level 1 for chronic absenteeism, both showing improvement from year to year, and you'll see that comparison as we move forward.
And just to draw out specifically what, and Eileen articulated this very well, all of your achievement, as far as the overall and the achievement gaps, are shared between the two schools, and it will be the same when our friends from Unionville and Lightfoot come forward. The place where it is separated is each school is judged individually on its chronic absenteeism rate. So even though both schools are at level 1, you will see when we get to the data that they likely have different percentages within level 1. So Lee's school's attendance is judged as Lee's school's attendance, and then Eileen. So all the testing is combined because we don't test at K2. So just wanted to draw that out. So when you see a number of things that run together that are the same for both schools, and then you have this chronic absenteeism rate that will be different, that's why.
So on our next slide, here is where you see the actual percentages that led to those indicator levels. So for academic achievement in English, our actual result was an 85% pass rate, remembering that that minimum standard was 75%. In academic achievement for math for all students, our pass rate was 81%, with that minimum standard being 70%. And then under science is where we did have that level 3. We were at a 60%, and the minimum proficiency there is a 70%. So we definitely have some room for growth there. And then overall, here's where you see the difference in the chronic absenteeism. For Locust Grove Elementary School, we had a 13%, which is a level 1. For that, you need to have 15% or less chronic absenteeism. And Mr. Leapfinger, would you like to speak to yours?
Sure, and where you see the 12% there, and when we're looking at those 3 schools that were accredited with conditions, it's important to know that Locust Grove Primary School is accredited with conditions based on the chronic absenteeism rate in prior years. As you can see, we have gone from level 3 to level 1, and we continue to pursue that trajectory.
Okay, on our next slide, this is where you can see a 3-year average for the academic indicators. And what you'll notice is we do have a bit of stagnation here with our scores from the last 3 years post-pandemic. And so this is something that we'll look to address in our school improvement plan as we move on in the presentation. And then this slide details specifically our gap groups for our academic achievement. You can see that in nearly all areas, Locust Grove is performing at a level 1, with our students with disabilities being the group that has been underperforming and is an area where we definitely have a lot of focus in supporting the needs of those students. In English, we were at at a level 2, approaching the minimum requirement, and then level 3 was in math, where we have a little bit more work to do in order to get the students at the above that minimum proficiency there for students with disabilities. And then this slide is giving you the percentages that go along with each of those gap groups. And again, all the way to the right is where you can see our students with disabilities. In English, we were at a 69% pass rate, with 75% being the minimum requirement. And in math, we were at a 58%, if I can see that far. And that is why we're in a level 3 there, or a red, needing to get to at least 70 or better. And then one of the areas that we had a dramatic improvement would be in our chronic absenteeism rate. You can see on the graph to the left, in 22-23, we ended the school year with 18.7% of our students being chronically absent from school. And in 1 year's time, we were able to improve by nearly 6 percentage points and dropped that chronic absenteeism rate down to 12.9%, which is a great improvement. And we want to continue to improve upon that with our goal this year of getting below 10%. So this slide details for you the work and the goals that we have for our school improvement plan. We conducted a needs assessment and then developed our school support plan based on the data that was discovered in that needs assessment. And these are going to address some of the areas that you saw in our end of year data from last year. So with chronic absenteeism, many of these strategies we put into place last year, which helped support that 6% improvement in our chronic absenteeism. And we're going to continue those strategies. Most importantly, recognizing our students for good attendance. Just today, we recognized well over 200 students for perfect attendance in August, despite the fact that we had the water issues on our end of the county. We are increasing our parent communication. We have regular reminders through our social media and alerts, talking to parents about the importance of attendance. And any of the students who do have unverified absences, we do make personal phone calls rather than the robocalls, so that we can speak to families directly, find out what's going on, excuse any absences that should be excused, but work with families to address any of the barriers or obstacles that may be keeping students from attending school. And then we're also working through our SAT teams and with our counselors and registrar to ensure that we are following division policy, making parent contacts, having attendance meetings, and developing attendance plans as needed to address those needs. And then we'll continue to increase our family engagement activities. We added several events last year to increase parent involvement, including activities that were instructionally focused. And we're also going to hold a special event this year to invite parents in to get an update from me on the state of the school, where we are, what we've achieved, and how we'd like to move forward to continue to improve our school and gain that feedback from our school community. In the areas of instruction, there are many things that we're looking to do so that we can continue to meet and exceed minimum requirements from the state. We want all of our students to be successful. So to do that, there's a variety of things. Starting number one with our staffing and the professional growth of our staff. I'm very happy to report that we began this school year fully staffed with nearly all of our staff highly qualified, and anyone who isn't highly qualified yet is in process of receiving their certificates, mostly through the iTeach program, and it's wonderful to be able to start off a school year that way. What we are doing with our staffing is the key, of course, is we need to retain strong personnel so that they can continue to develop their skills and their toolbox to deliver the highest quality instruction possible to our students. So we're doing that in a variety of ways. First, we have restructured our PLC model. PLC is professional learning communities. We have developed a calendar for the school year that lays out a structured model for how and what our teams address in their grade level and team meetings, including lesson planning, data dives, and implementing interventions to support students that are in need. We have protected PLC times, so there are no other meetings that take place during those PLCs, such as IEP meetings or 504s. Those are scheduled on opposite days of our PLCs, so our teams have time to do that valuable collaboration. We are also working, utilizing distributed leadership in that we have lead teachers at the elementary level that are identified based on content. Those lead teachers are part of our leadership team in addition to administrators and other specialists within the building. We are working on developing their leadership skills, and then we divide up members of the leadership team into the PLCs so that all those teams are fully supported by trained personnel in helping them work as collaborative teams. And then also we are working on collaborative lesson planning. We have our staff involved in peer observations and providing each other with feedback. And our administrative team is increasing the frequency of our observation and walkthrough feedback to our teachers as well. Some of the other things that we're doing to support our instruction include our interventions and supports for students who are identified as needing additional remediation or instruction. Our high-intensity tutoring program was kicked off last year. We began the program in October and ran it 5 days a week through the month of April. This year, we are doing high-intensity tutoring again, but we are targeting the students in a slightly different way. Last year, we offered reading and math simultaneously. This time, we are running sessions, and we are starting the year off with 6 weeks of reading support for high-intensity tutoring with certified teachers. And then we'll have another session for math, and we'll rotate throughout the year. We will also have a session specifically for science to address the needs in science. So a little bit more targeting and focus on utilizing our highly qualified and experienced teachers to deliver that instruction to our neediest students. We're also providing our students with a balanced instructional model, and what I mean by that is previously, Locust Grove had provided a great deal of remediation as a pull-out model, coming out of the regular education classroom and going into special education classrooms or being serviced by reading specialists and our English language teacher. This year, we are doing more of a balanced model where we have those specialists are pushing into the classroom and helping students, giving support while they're learning on grade level material, and then doing an additional pull-out to provide any support in areas that they have gaps in their skills. So a much more balanced model to ensure they are getting what they need, as well as being fully exposed to the on grade level curriculum in which they are tested. Finally, science was that one area that we ended on a level 3 in our academic indicators. So it needed to become a priority for us in a way that that perhaps it hadn't been previously because we had such a tremendous focus on reading and math. So one of the first things we did was look at our master schedule. Science time was increased in the master schedule across all grade levels so that there was more instructional time dedicated to science. We are ensuring that all of our students are exposed to hands-on experiential learning in all of our science units, so they have that opportunity to really experiment and learn in a safe way and explore and develop their scientific thinking and inquiry skills. And we're utilizing a structured lesson plan that utilizes what's called the SCOT tool that came from the VDOE, science classroom observation tool to provide ongoing feedback to our teachers, especially focused on their science instruction and ensuring that it's aligned to the rigor of our learning standards in science. And we're also increasing the professional development opportunities that we're giving our teachers to continuously develop their skills as science instructors. So those are some of the things that LGES is doing to address our needs. Before I turn it over to Mr. Finger, are there any questions for me?
I do have a question. If you could go backwards, Laura, to about slide 10. I think it's the school quality indicators page with the achievement list scores. So I've been following pretty closely the conversations at the state level about the new accreditation system that they're working on for possible rollout in the next year. And one of the things that I've heard as a criticism of what we currently do is that those scores that we're looking at right now are really kind of oblique in terms of did we pass the SOL at an 85% rate, or does that roll in growth assessment, and what exactly does that mean? And how transparent is that when our parents see these scores and say, oh, we're great, we're at 85%, which looks beautiful. Congratulations, I'm so thrilled to see these numbers, it's wonderful. But I want to know that our students are achieving.
Mm-hmm.
So can someone, maybe Dr. Wolfrey, that's a better question for you, I don't know, do you understand what I'm asking?
I do.
How do we measure for real?
Yes, ma'am. So
what achievement is?
My understanding is the scores that you're seeing here is a combination of pass rate as well as students who met growth percentages do count towards the passing percentage. So a raw score that shows simply did you pass the test would be different than the number that you see there. So students who demonstrate a specific level of growth as identified by the state do count as a pass even if they did not pass the exam.
So to measure growth, do we go back to the previous SOL and see what the improvement on that test has been in that time?
Yes, ma'am.
Or is there another measure?
Yes, ma'am. So for grades 4 and up, yes, that is what happens. You compare the test score from the previous school year in the same subject to what they scored on this current year's test. Third grade would be the exception because they have no prior testing. So they use the growth assessment that they take in the fall as the base score to determine growth in the spring. Does that fully answer? Does anybody else need to say?
The only thing that I will add to that is that when they were looking at their data and the needs assessment, they were basing that off of what were those straightforward pass rates. So this presentation is strictly around accreditation. So everything that we're presenting is based on how the state calculates that.
Mm-hmm.
When the schools looked at how their students were doing, they looked at how their students were doing on that, just did they pass or did they not pass, and then drilling down from there in order to develop the school improvement plan.
And when our parents get this information, do they get the raw test scores on the child?
Yes, the parents get their individual test scores, absolutely, and then with growth factored in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure, absolutely. Did you have more, or just no? Mr. Finger. Okay.
Yeah, I had some questions. Madam Chair.
Questions for me?
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, don't go anywhere.
I mean, I guess it's generic for everybody, but absenteeism, it does not matter if they're excused or unexcused, correct?
Correct.
Correct.
Additionally, with the instruction, it seems like science is a continued area of struggle across the board. We learned throughout 2020 that kids need to be in school.
Mm-hmm.
It's had a lot of residual effects, so I believe that's probably part of that. But has the bar been raised at all, also with the state standards?
So I wouldn't say necessarily the bar was raised per se. However, the test has changed, and the SOLs had as well. The biggest difference this is my opinion, is that the SOL for science and social studies used to be much more knowledge-based. Could you recall the factual information? It is much more application-based now. Can you take the information you learned about this and apply it in this other real-life situation? And that's the gap that I feel, especially in my school, that we need to make that jump in order to help the students get to where they need to be successful.
Okay. And is that going to be an area of focus moving forward?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then the meetings that you were discussing, were they previously scheduled during instructional time for the disabled students? Like you were talking about, there was meetings during certain class times, and now they're on alternate days.
Yes, so the PLC meetings are professional learning community meetings. They had previously been scheduled on Tuesdays and Thursdays in my building. However, there were times where teachers were called out of those meetings to attend other meetings, such as IEP meetings. Okay. And so now we hold those IEPs and 504s Monday, Wednesday, Friday, so that Tuesday, Thursday, our whole teams are gathered and able to collaborate fully. That's what I mean by the protected time.
Understood. And then have we reached out to parents to collaborate on ideas for improved learning opportunities? I know sometimes it's, they know their kids best, and they know how their kids' brain functions and how to work around different issues that are specific to their child. Have we attempted that in any way?
So in an informal way, at my school, I've had conversations with PTA members and some of the staff members who are on our leadership team are also parents. But earlier when I was presenting about increasing the family engagement, part of what I'm looking to do is have like a coffee and conversation type meeting where I can invite in the community members and be able to talk about this is the state of our school, obviously we need to improve in these areas. What feedback would you like to provide, and so forth, and get their input that way.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wait a minute.
This is the joy of going first, isn't it?
Make it easy on everyone else.
This is the joy of
I got
going
you all.
first.
I got you.
They all owe you big time.
Yeah.
Two quick ones. So you used the word model for tutoring, and that you changed the model from one set to another. Mm-hmm. Why?
So last year was the first year that we had the high intensity tutoring program, and it was very much, we need to get this implemented. We wanted to try to get in as many students as we could, which was great, and we served well over 130 kids in our tutoring program for 7 months of the year. However, what we learned is it was hard for our teachers that were providing that instruction to really focus in on the individual needs of each student, because on this day of the week they had these kids, and then on this day of the week they had these kids, and the groups kept changing too much. And so now we want to really focus in. So the first 6 weeks that we start tutoring at the end of this month, we're focusing in on just reading. So everyone that's coming in has been identified as a student that needs additional help in reading, and all of our teachers are providing that support in reading. And students can come either 2 days a week in the morning, or we're offering 2 days a week in the afternoon. And then after that 6 weeks, then we're going to roll into math. And then we're going to bring in this group of kids who are targeted in needs for math. So there might be kids that need both. There might be kids that only need one or the other. So being much more targeted in our approach with who we're serving and who's serving them.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. And then you used the word balance quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I very much appreciate that. To Ms. Dawson's point, when we're talking about the raw numbers, society overall, we tend to have our knee-jerk reaction, oh my God, science. But you seem to have the approach that while science needs some attention, yes, but let's not forget about math mm-hmm. and some of the other things. One other question, what's your biggest challenge as an administrator?
Oh boy.
Now they owe you big time, because they're going to get the same question.
I guess I would say the biggest challenge is time. Mm-hmm. There are so many needs in such a variety of ways. It's hard to balance out the time that we have in a day to meet all those needs, whether it's the needs of our students or the needs of our staff, because they need support too, the same way our students do. And so really being able to prioritize and dedicate the time needed to make everyone successful is probably the biggest challenge.
Terrific. This board, we cannot produce time.
Right.
I would love to say that we could, but we can't. But anyway, that being said, what could we do to help support differently?
Well, I guess in a way, the time factor could be addressed through the school calendar.
Okay.
I believe that additional days for professional development or work days for teachers is critical to success, even if that is simply adding perhaps a few more early release days, because we do ask our teachers to do a lot, and it's needed, and they do valuable work, and we need to give them the time to be able to do it the best way they can.
Excellent. Terrific presentation. And if you don't mind, share that with Dr. Wolfrey so she and Dr. Hornick can look at that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You're all welcome.
All right, we're going to move on to Locust Grove Primary School. And Dr. Oliver Eckert, you did a very nice job of giving everyone a tutorial of the language that we're going to use this evening. And I am certain you're going to hear and see some common themes, not just in my presentation, but in the presentation of principals at the other schools. As I shared with you that, first off, I want to share with you here the chronic absenteeism rate for all of our students 2 years ago was at 26.9%, and we were able to meet the state expectation of having a chronic absenteeism rate below 15% and settling at just about 12%. And our goal as well is to be under 10% for this coming school year. And really, and when we look at this next slide, I'm just going to, there it is. I'm just going to really highlight the team approach. You heard a lot of wonderful things that Locust Grove Elementary is doing, and we've learned that a lot of what that is best practice. And so we're going to mirror that, we're going to mimic that across the settings. And one thing I'd like to highlight is the importance of that team approach, having that multidisciplinary approach to reviewing data, working together to implement next steps to support improved student attendance. And that can be done at an individual level, school level, but in this case, partnering with the social worker, school counselors, our registrar and administration, and then targeted groups as well. And the importance of improving attendance naturally leads to our focus to continuous academic improvement and achievement. These areas are closely linked as regular attendance is key to student success. And as we move on to the next piece here of instruction and student achievement, I'd like to highlight that we are doing some work using much the same process as Dr. Oliver Eckert had shared through our school improvement team and our school improvement plan. But in addition to that, we have applied for and had been awarded a $50,000 targeted school improvement grant. And that was an opportunity that was granted to us as being a targeted school of improvement for our chronic absenteeism. Thankfully, we are out of that, but that still gives us the opportunity to use those funds to not only continue the work that we've done in our chronic absenteeism, but extend that to continued success in our academics. And so in order to support the requirements of that grant, we will be utilizing specific evidence-based interventions in math and reading. And this is going to benefit all students at Locust Grove Primary School, but specifically the targeted improvement areas, or subgroups, of students with disabilities, as we saw in the data earlier as well. And in that particular year, students with multiple races. And we're going to support these efforts through continual professional development. We heard more about that as well. Professional learning community work, refinement of lesson plan alignment, and provide feedback to specific teachers and teams to harness the power of our selected evidence-based practices. And lead teachers will continue to play a role in leading these efforts with administration and school improvement team. And we will continue to monitor that work through the school improvement team by reviewing screening data, benchmark data, and progress monitoring data. And then, as Dr. Oliver Eckert had shared, we will continue to support these efforts and supplement them through the high-intensity tutoring before and after school. And after we review first quarter grades, we will return to some Saturday school time as well.
Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
You
Madam
going to
Chair.
answer my question?
Well, that was a really good answer, Dr. Oliver Eckert. Along the lines of time, it's not necessarily the time, but the resources that you've been able to provide that allow for us the time to work with our school improvement teams to get in classrooms more. And what I'm referring to is, I think about the support of the funding for school counseling within our schools, our school support coaches, the partnerships that we have with Chrysalis Counseling and some of those other folks, because there are some basic needs that these organizations and that these really highly qualified and knowledgeable people can provide for our students so that they can access their academics. So I think it's more of a thank you and something to put on your radar and know that it does make a difference and helps us to achieve our academic goals. Hope that helps.
I also had a question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Essentially, you're walking these students into their first SOL.
Yeah. Yes.
So, is there any collaboration between the two schools? And we've heard that we're focusing more on the application part of science versus knowledge recall.
Yeah.
Is there a transition in your classrooms based off of what we're seeing in future testing?
Right, and that's where I think Dr. Oliver Eckert did a really nice job of explaining the focus and the intentionality that we're going to see in science instruction, not just at Locust Grove Elementary, but the primary as well, where we're walking in the classrooms and we want to see students doing science, not just thinking about science and talking about science, but providing those precursor experiences to build prior knowledge and understanding of more complex skills. But Dr. Oliver Eckert and I speak very often, and I think we build that bridge between the schools a little bit more every year.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lee. Ms. Grubb, Mr. Kubik, Unionville Lightfoot.
Good evening. So as you can see, Lightfoot and Unionville are level 1 in English, math, and chronic absenteeism, and science is a level 3. In English and math, overall, this year's achievement is 82%, and science is a 56%, which is, like the other two schools, an area of focus this year. In English and math, overall, there's been a slight increase of performance, and in science, our previous year's scores have helped, but this year it was not enough for us to be at level 1 or 2, so again, this is going to be a big area of focus for us. On our subgroups, we made significant increases in our achievement gaps in both students who are Black and students with special needs in both English and math. In the overall achievement gap in English from 2023 to 2024, we increased 3% from 83% to 86%. And in math, we increased 76% to 86%, which was a big achievement for us this year. And then as you can see from this slide, I'll give you a little bit more background because, again, we made huge gains that you can't just see through this piece of data. But in English, our scores for students who are Black, we went from a 68% to a 79%. In math, from a 50 to a 78%. And our English scores for students who are Hispanic, we went from an 89 to a 97%. And math, from a 91 to a 97. Our English scores for students who are economically disadvantaged went from a 77 to 80. And math, from a 68 to 78. And our English scores for students with disabilities from 57% to 78%, and in math from 55 to 70%. We reduced our chronic absenteeism at Lightfoot by more than 12%, which was a massive undertaking, which you hear from the other administrators too, with early contacts and meetings. And last year we changed how we target our family engagement, which I'll speak to in a little bit, what we're going to continue to highlight and continue to work towards, because As we were just saying, students who are in school are learning, and that is evident in our growth in all those other areas, especially our students we targeted with our subgroups. So this year, we are building on our success with a focus on attendance, partnering with our families specifically about student learning. What does that look like in school? What does that look like at home? We are targeting pieces of the updated attendance policy, especially tardies and leaving early. The second half of the day for the students are missing. They are leaving early. We looked at our data from last year, and they are missing out on content areas such as science. So that's very important. We know that impacts student learning. We are acknowledging our families that are improving with their daily attendance, including the tardies, especially the weeks and days before and after breaks. And we've already seen since we started, this is our first week full school, and so we are still working through that. So that's a very specific area for us to focus on. With refocusing our events for families, with teaching families on how to help students study and how to play academic games at home. And that came through our Title I meetings that we have with parents, with our PTA meetings. We sent out a survey last year, and we held some additional sessions that came out of the Title I meetings with Dr. Wolfrey that parents wanted to know more about how to help students, or what does it look like in the classroom for the science of reading, and for math, what does that look like? So we targeted some more areas like that, and we're going to continue to do that this year. We have revised our individual student learning plans to engage our families early for additional support, specifically because that gives us a way to help and say, we really would like for your student to come to tutoring. This allows us to center our conversations with families on math and reading skills that are needed to be successful in those areas, but as we were just saying a few minutes ago, specifically in science, because of how integrated everything is, especially with analyzing data, graphing, and so forth in science. In reading, we are engaged in the adoption of the CKLA, and specifically, we're going to continue to focus on embedding cross-curricular content and vocab, especially science. For students in need of interventions, specifically students who are identified as multi-race, because in our raw data, that was an area that was lower this past year. We're going to continue to target with phonics with our Alexia program and our multi-sensory education, which is IMSC. In math, we're going to build on our math workshop model, which we have been working on for the past couple of years at Lightfoot, which is a big reason behind some of our increases in our math scores. We want to make sure that our students demonstrate essential thinking strategies and not just a lot of the rote memorization. And this is instrumental to growth not only in math, but in the application of science. In science specifically, we are also working with teachers on enhancing lesson plan format, looking at the state look-fors for them embedded into the plan. And we really want to make sure that our students are scientists and working with hands-on real-world problems. And if you look at our social media, or if you come in during science, you'll see that we have goggles on, we have the jackets on, so the kids actually see themselves as scientists and collecting the data and doing something with it, and especially that tied to community. All of this work is focused on our professional learning needs that are identified through our walkthroughs, which we increased a lot last year and have already started this year, observations, teacher surveys, and then we continue to build our teacher capacity through our teacher leadership with our lead teachers. We are going to continue to work with our coordinators, specifically with the needs of new staff. This will help with teacher retention. Last year, we did have 2 long-term subs at Lightfoot, and this year we were able to hire teachers who all have had previous experience. This work has been enhanced by the grant that Dr. Wolfrey recognized our group for at the beginning, with our work on professional learning and implementation of the high quality materials. And Ms. Jakubik's going to speak a little bit more to that in just a minute. And then finally, tutoring was a huge success for us last year. We could have between 50 and 60 students in a morning coming to Lightfoot, and we know if they come in for that, then they're at school. We are a state anchor school this year for Zern, which is our tutoring math program, which we meet with coaches, myself, Pam Wayne, who was here earlier, that also went with us for the reading to Arizona. But we meet with them and go through the data and see what we can do to help support our students in tutoring, which has already been a very beneficial partnership. So we're very excited that we're able to participate in that. And again, we just want to capitalize on all of those efforts that include then go into science.
Thank you.
Could I ask, pardon me, could I ask one quick question?
Yes.
I've heard a couple of you reference that we need to be doing science instead of just getting head knowledge. Does our curriculum help foster that? Or
Yes.
do we need to look at something different?
We have the hands-on science, which came through Discovery Ed, which we're still using, from sand, light bulbs, batteries.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, and it's great because then we get those refilled, and it's great for the teachers to have those readily available rather than having to purchase or things like that. I know when I was teaching, we would you go to Walmart or whatever to get what you need. So the county does offer those for the teachers, and they do make use of it.
That's excellent. Also, just commendations on those numbers that you named are just amazing improvement. And I commute 522 every morning and afternoon, so I've seen all those cars dropping off kiddos for tutoring, and I'm going, so it's made a huge difference. So
it really has.
Congratulations. Job well done.
And I think I can go back because it's with a question on, I think one of the biggest things that's the most difficult for me as administrator where we are is that we are separated. In not having like my own hands, eyes, and everything going on the K2, but that's also a very positive thing because since Ms. Jakubik has come to work in Orange, our partnership just continues to increase. We were able to go to Arizona the summer before to the Models Conference. We are constantly looking at our data. We spent a long time this summer looking at the science data and looking through all the prerequisite skills that we don't get that data from the state. I had to say, Amy, these are the areas that our students did not do well on. And then she went through and started going through with her team already too to look through what are the prerequisite skills for life cycles, when does that start, and then how are we translating that over so it's not just a fourth and fifth grade science is tested in fifth grade, but that we are constantly working on those things and that our teachers see themselves as one school. We actually came up with a name this summer. It was Miss Grant with Union Foot. And we made our little own emblem for the schools because we do need to see ourselves. It's hard sharing staff at times, but at the same time, it allows us to have these common goals together. So
Well, I didn't realize until a conversation with Dr. Hornick about the scoring that the state sees you as Union Foot.
They do.
Too. So, we think of you as two separate places, but you're connected, and that's true in each of those cases. So that's important to know. And thank you both.
I had a quick question as well. Sure. Noticed all of the scores are trending upwards, which is great, as well as the absenteeism it's trending downward. However, the science has been extremely trending downward, more so than in other schools. So I was wondering if you had any inclination as to where that might have been coming from, and anything that we could do to help address the shortfalls or shortcomings.
Our data cycles and the waiver, which maybe you could speak if you need to speak a little bit more to that, but we could not get our science off of a 3-year average. So what we made out straight, we couldn't get it to get we could have gotten a 10% reduction, but we did not get a 10% reduction from that. So it looks a little bit different from that data from the other schools. I think that a big thing for us, we were actually doing a lot during the pandemic, still trying to teach and keep the kids interested in science. So it's been very frustrating. And last year in particular, Lightfoot really kind of spearheaded the hands-on pieces and the new tool that from the state, and trying to get a lot of hands-on opportunities. So of course it's very disappointing, and that's when looking through the data specifically and working with Mr. Kubik on starting back at kindergarten, what are some of these skills, how can we continue to build that. We have put so much time into the reading and the math, and now really just trying to integrate those pieces together. So we have the hands-on materials, we have the time built into our schedule. The teachers, were very fortunate this year in particular. My 5th grade team is back for the 3rd year. So I'm hoping, well, it's the 2nd year because Miss Wayne came over to us last year. But I think that will help us, having teachers, if you're not a science major, a lot of times in the elementary world, you're majoring in, well, you might in English, but then you get a certificate in pre-K through 6, so you might not have that same science background. So having the opportunity to actually teach and learn and grow together and stay in that content is very important at that level. So I think we have all the things in place, and now that we have staff, from the beginning of the year, like over at Locust Grove 2, having teachers that are either highly qualified or finishing up things that they need is very important to that. But I think we have everything in place for that. We have a good program, working with a coordinator, and it's just giving some more time, building that background knowledge, which I think the CKLA will help us with a lot, and a lot of what we're doing in science and reading. So, and we have a larger focus this year on it. We have our own science VTSS meetings this year instead of trying to do them together. Today we had science meetings and going just over that data and kind of looking through together. So I think I think we have those pieces in place. I appreciate that.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amy?
All right, so like you all have heard, my academic data is tied to Lightfoot's academic data. So the only new piece of information I have for you for data is attendance. So we did move from a level 2 last year to a level 1 in our attendance because we reduced that rate by 10%. So like everybody else, my goal is to be below the 10% for this upcoming school year. And then I just want to highlight some things here. A lot of the things that you see on this slide are continuations from last school year. So really we're taking the same strategies for chronic absenteeism and our instructional strategies and just diving in deeper to those. I feel like what we have in place is working, and it is making great gains for us in our absenteeism and our instruction. So we're just taking it a little bit deeper. So if you look at the chronic absenteeism, one thing that we're doing is increasing our family engagement activities and kind of putting a little spin on those. Like Mrs. Grubb had explained, we're taking time to teach parents how to practice certain skills at home. And we take into consideration, we do school events for our entire school population, but then we also do targeted events for targeted populations. For example, just one example for you is students that would receive reading intervention by a reading specialist or a special education student are significantly below grade level. We invite them separately, so it's a smaller group of parents to a larger number of adults, and take some time to really teach them how to practice phonics skills at home or how to practice the basic number sense skills at home with their students, so that they're getting that instruction at school, but then they're able to go home. We supply them with the materials and the directions on how to do that, in hopes that that partnership will really help increase the academics for those students. And also activities like that, also they increase the absentee rate for those students, because if the parents are feeling successful, if they know how important school is, they know what they're doing at school and how important that is for them academically, then that is helping the students come to school on a more regular basis. Another thing, increasing the positive communication for parents. We spend a lot of time educating our parents on why school is important through different newsletters that are sent home on a weekly basis. And then, like you've heard from everybody else, just the increase in the live personal phone calls to families. We've broadened our attendance team, so there are 4 individuals, and we really tackle those families on an individual basis and who they might have the best relationship with on that team as to who would be responsible for calling those families and getting absentee notes or encouraging, early return to school. You don't need to keep them out for 3 days because of this, send them back to school the next day. Whatever we can do to get them to come to school more frequently. And then moving into instructional strategies, again, these are things that we are continuing to strengthen our practices. Nothing that's really brand new here for Unionville. We're doing all of these things through developing teacher leaders. Like you've heard somebody else say, we have grade level leads or content leads for all of our core content areas. Those are grade level leads in our buildings. But we spent a lot of time in developing them as leaders and honing in on their leadership skills. That conference that we went to really helped that. So Ms. Grant, Ms. Grubb and I share as a special education teacher, and then Mrs. Stingo is one of my second grade teachers. So as a group, to piggyback off of what Ms. Grubb said, during teacher work week, we had both of our staffs together, and those 3 ladies led our staffs together through how we're going to strengthen our professional learning communities within each of our buildings. So that helped them see each other as like we are one school. We had fun with it as well, calling ourselves Union Foot and being silly. But at the end of the day, they knew like we are one, and what we do in K2 really does affect what happens when they get into 3-5. And 3-5 really seeing us as their partner as well in the instruction. So I'm taking that approach with my team, with my leaders. So our whole schools were trained, and then Ms. Grant and Ms. Stingo really spent additional time with the other team leads in my building to strengthen their practices in professional learning communities. So we all have same common language, common agendas, common themes. Like somebody else had said, we have them scheduled. So every week it's a different content area, so that we can really be specific in what we're doing when we're together and we have time together. There's never enough time for all of us to be together and to get our work done. So when we are together, it's very focused as to what we're working on. And we are working in depth with our lesson planning and making sure that the delivery of our lessons align with what the new standards are, and then the new high quality instructional materials that we have available in our buildings. So we meet on a regular cycle for literacy, math, and science. Science being the new. Last year we talked about science while we were talking about some other things. Now it's a standalone, it's by itself, so that we can really focus on those things. And I think just doing all of that and raising up our teachers as leaders, it has them additional buy-in to this as our school, and these are our students, and we're going to do what we need to get them. I think it helps retain them as well to stay at Unionville, and they're invested in the work that we're doing. Thank you. Your question. So I'm going to say prioritizing. It kind of goes a little bit with the time, but then also with other things, just being able to stay with what is the most important thing, which is our students, and being able to always prioritize them at the top and not get caught up with the squirrel moments that happen with little guys.
We call it bird squirrel at my house.
Exactly.
Bird squirrel cloud, actually. But anyway, what can we do?
Well, I appreciate all your support. I think adopting the CKLA is going to be very helpful long term when we're talking about foundational reading skills as well as building background knowledge. The amount of background knowledge that's being built through that like knowledge block in the K-2 world is immense, and the kids love it. So I appreciate that from you guys, and just all of your support.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Lawyer, I believe you were next.
Good evening. So my name is Lawyer Johnson, the principal of Orange Elementary School. As you can see, based on our school quality indicators, we are green across all levels, which is absolutely awesome. I'm extremely proud of the work that the teachers, the specialists, and just the school has done to get to this level, but we can't be complacent. There are areas in which we have to focus on to continue to improve, and just because we're here this year doesn't mean we can't work harder to make sure that all students are there. So, like I said, identifying those areas. One area that when I spoke with my school leadership team that we would like to identify is the science. And like stated earlier, CKLA is a way to hopefully increase the information that students have. Because if they don't have that background knowledge when you get to the teaching, then you're teaching that background knowledge. But then as I think it was Dr. Oliver Eggert had said, that we have to then apply it. And that's the shift. It's going from knowing about the scientific method to increasing the engineering practices to make it applicable to other problems, and that's our focus. One of the things I am proud of is our chronic absenteeism, and I know Mr. Rickett, you asked Dr. Wolfrey about our efforts moving forward. I looked back 2 years ago, we were at 38%. And so in 2 years to decrease that to 13% is huge. And so like everyone else, our goal is to be under 10%. So looking at our academic achievement, we've been a little stagnant the past few years. While it is good, we still want to do better. We have to really focus on our gap groups, and that's the next slide. Or one more. But as you can see, these are our gap groups. Once again, once it's all green, that's okay, but there's still work to be done. And so this is where we're really focusing on our students with disabilities at 75% for our in reading and English, and then for our students who are Black in English as well. And we really targeted our tutoring to support those students, especially when they were identified via vowels or also with the growth assessments. So chronic absenteeism, 2 years ago it was 38%. Last year it was 18%, or the year before it was 18%, and then this past year it was 13%. So we're trending in the right direction. There's been a lot of things that we have done as a staff to decrease that absenteeism, and I'll go into that next. So chronic absenteeism, we know if the students aren't present, then learning is interrupted. And we want to make sure that we do what we need to support our students. But it's not just our students, it's their families as well. And so increased communication with families about attendance. We have student assistance team meetings where we invite the families to come in, especially if they do have an attendance plan, to see what that barrier is. So then that way we can try to work alongside families to remove that barrier to make sure their child is there. We've sent out a lot of information about our incentives. If you would like to be a part of it, come. It's a great way that we partner not only with our parents, but the community. And so last week I was water ballooned in front of 531 students during lunch. We had an attendance challenge. We are a very competitive school, and the challenge is hosted by all the classrooms. Our counselors actually keep track of which classroom has the highest percentage of attendance for the week. And there's a nice board right in front outside of our library that shows which class wins each week. But then also we have banners. So the students are actually getting banners across their classroom door that says attendance winners. Through those, through that program, then we work alongside our PTO and PTA, and this year we're providing them those dates ahead of time, but it's still secret to students. But we're providing those dates ahead of time, so then that way they can come in and really enjoy the moment, as I like to say. The recognitions for students, our counselors also recognize our students who are getting perfect attendance as well. And it's just been a very rewarding experience because it's not only fun for the students, it's fun for the staff. It gets our community involved. It has our parents involved. And we do all this with protecting academic time. So we actually do it at lunch or connect or at recess. So then that way we're not taking time outside of the classroom. Another important thing that helped us to address chronic absenteeism is our increased extracurricular opportunities. Last year we were able to recognize our Student Council Association. We had our Soapbox Derby team, Girls on the Run, we have math clubs. And so looking at all of those, when a student is able to feel engaged or a part of the community, they come to school. When we had the tutoring, we looked at the success of math and reading, but one success that was really big was that attendance increased for those students who had the opportunity to come in for tutoring in the mornings. So through all of that, as you can see, we've decreased our attendance rate the last 2 years. I'm really proud of that. And then, as I mentioned earlier, student assistance team meetings and attendance plan meetings is something that we do regularly to support that, to make sure that we're staying on track and having the student there. For our instructional piece, we're going to continue to focus on our Tier 1 instructional strategies for all students. We have those gap groups that we want to support. We want to continue to see that growth. Teacher clarity, visible learning. Our students need to be able to understand what they're learning, and our teachers have to be able to get them to see that. And that's a really important piece, that when we go into rooms, Ms. Fake and myself, we're asking the students, what are you learning today? How do you know you have learned it? And if they don't, then we ask them to clarify. So scaffolding is really big on content and skills. Like it was mentioned earlier, all students are in the classroom during their core instruction, and so that scaffolding piece with our ELL specialists, with our special education teachers, with our gifted specialists, making sure they have that time to collaborate, not only during the day, but some of them do come in the mornings or even after school. So what we did was we scaled back a little bit of our data and RTI meetings to allow our teachers to have increased time to plan, because they have a lot of changing information with the change in the standards, but then also the new curriculum that they're working through. And so by giving them more time to work as a professional learning community, it helps enhance that lesson planning, but also that delivery, that instruction. And one of the big things that I'm proud of my staff for is that they seek opportunities to grow. And like it was mentioned earlier, we have teacher leaders in our building, and those teacher leaders are getting grants to go to professional development. And so they're bringing that back to their professional learning communities to then support the growth of that grade level and the school. And then continuing professional development as a staff, we want to continue to refine our math workshop and get better at it. And then also we want to, like I said, increase our in-house presenters, because we do have teacher leaders who go above and beyond each day, and we want to make sure that they have an opportunity to share the information that they have.
I'm waiting on you.
So speaking with the staff, and as all of them said, time's the biggest thing. Just time. we really strive to support our students, and we want to make sure that we do the best job as we can. But as someone mentioned earlier, we also have to support our staff. And while the curriculum and how we deliver it has changed a little bit, we just want to make sure that we're really intentional with how we do it. And that prioritizing is a huge piece of that.
What can we do?
I think a lot of the things that you have done allows us to be free a little bit more as administrators. Like someone mentioned, that student support coach is a very vital role for us. Making sure that we have our ELL and gifted specialists, because that really ties our families together. And so with our student support coach, our ELL and gifted, having those resources available make it a lot easier to help coordinate with families. And that's the biggest piece. We're partners, and I just want you to see the importance of that partnership. But also just continue to support us, continue to support our teachers. That's the biggest thing.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. Last but certainly not least, just like last year, right, Brandy?
That's right.
Miss Shoemake from Gordon Barber.
Well, we were the last to start this year, so that's success. We're still standing. All right.
A little extra time.
That's right. That's right. Yes. So looking at our school quality indicators, we do have level 1 across the board, like you've seen throughout tonight. Science is a level 2 for us, and that is an area that we will need to continue to focus on. This is showing the percentages for our school quality indicators. We are doing well in English and math, but as Mr. Johnson said, that does not mean that there's not room for improvement and continued growth there. So we do have some things in place that I'll talk about later for that. Again, science is at 68%, so very close, but not where we want to be. We've also made some adjustments to be able to address that. Chronic absenteeism for us was a huge success. We have cut that almost in half from where we were last year. That received a lot of focus and attention by not just myself, but my entire team. And I think that what you're seeing there is the result of that work. When we look at our academic achievement over the past 3 years, again, we are a little stagnant in our English achievement, even though our pass rates are well beyond where they need to be. We'd like to see some growth there. Same for math. Our math overall is very strong, but we also are working through some processes to continue to strengthen that. Science is an area where we have seen a decline. While we're close to where we need to be, that decline is something that we'd like to change for that trajectory to go in the other direction. So looking at our achievement gaps, we have come in at level 1 across the board, but our students with disabilities is an area of attention. We have made some adjustments to how we are serving our students with disabilities. In English, the CKLA program itself lends to the ability for us to do that a little bit more. So I think that we have a good plan in place, but that is a focus for us this year. And then the percentage for us across the board, you can see that we're really proud of our English language learners. We were 100% there in both English and math. Our economically disadvantaged group also performing very well in both English and math. We do have some work to do amongst our Black population, but also our students with disabilities in English is an area that we need to focus on. Math, we're doing well there, but that English area for our students with disabilities is something that we are addressing. And chronic absenteeism. So this shows the specific percentage. We brought it from 25.6% to 13.7% in this past school year. A lot of factors contributed to that. I think tutoring was a significant piece to it, but also an informational campaign and just bringing awareness to that for our community was a big piece of that.
I'll talk a little bit more as we go further into this, but we've continued that communication, and the messaging that we're sending to parents about chronic absenteeism, I think, is very valuable and important as we're addressing continued areas that I do see where we do have some students who are continually missing, and we have some spots to work on, but we do have a goal of getting under 10%, and I believe we can do it. So some of our strategies that we're looking at this year for some of the stuff we were doing last year, and so we've continued to just enhance that. The Student Ambassador Program was new to us last year. Students came in the building this year talking about that. So in my back to school PBIS meetings that I had with grade levels, I was able to go ahead and put that out there that, you know, we saw some students who wore their red vests, that they were ambassadors throughout our school, and the students who wanted to be a part of that needed to be able to be here. They needed to be able to be at school. And then we were also able to extend personal invitations to some students last year who may not go out and put themselves out there to apply for that. But we knew that they needed some involvement. We knew they needed a connection to our community, and so we were able to get some students involved that way. So we're continuing with that Student Ambassador Program. We did really increase our weekly family communication last year. As the year continued on, I developed what I call the Bulldog Bulletin. So it goes out to families on Sunday night. When I look back at what I sent the first week to what I sent the last week, it definitely changed, and then it's even taken on a new face this year. There are sections dedicated specifically to attendance and really educating families on the importance of having their students in school every day, all day. But there's also sections on there that talk about what they can do to support their students at home in reading, what they can do to support their students at home in various subjects. Just really trying to empower families with information on how they can help. And just making sure that that's there for them and it's accessible to them. So that's something that we're continuing to do. The weekly school attendance team meetings, we were meeting weekly last year. My school counselor, myself, and my school registrar, we have brought in the county social worker who has been an integral part of helping us reach families. And so this year we've been able to set weekly meetings with that team and really reach out to families quickly. So we have already made more contact than we had at this point last year with families, really just letting them know the importance of having their child there, and then helping them if there's barriers, if there's reasons they can't get there, letting them know that we're there to support them, and we really want to problem solve it with them. So the problem solving team approach has really been helpful, and then having her as part of that team and being able to meet with us weekly has been helpful as well. We do want to increase our parent volunteer opportunities. So I've been working with my PTO this year. We met early on before the school year started. We have some ideas to be able to increase that. It is not, we don't have a lot of members, but it's starting to grow. So we're starting to see some of that happen. Being more focused on some of the community engagement events that we have, and really marketing. Our next PTO meeting is discussing this volunteer opportunity. So please join us if you'd like to be a part of it and you'd like to support that. So being more targeted about what happens at those PTO meetings to be able to bring those families in, and then putting out surveys and opportunities, ways for parents to be able to say they want to be involved and be able to respond specifically on things they can do. We did that last year with one of our end of year events, and initially I had heard we don't get a lot of volunteers. The volunteers that we got for our field day event, through just advertising it differently and putting out a questionnaire to families who would like to join, and this is what you can do. We had a lot of success with families who came and joined, and those kids love seeing their parent standing at one of the stations. So we were really excited about being able to do that, and we'll continue to offer that to our families and try to increase that area as well. We are doing attendance incentives. We're giving out paw tags this year. So the very first open house that we had, every student received a paw tag so that they knew what we were talking about. Hopefully Amazon doesn't run out. And we're handing out those for recognitions. We do attendance reward weeks. So last week was an attendance reward week. The grade levels that had the best attendance are getting a little bit of extra recess because they need it. But also they're receiving paw tags. So the kids are talking about it. They're excited about that. We are recognizing our students with perfect attendance, and we are publicizing it. And so that has had a good effect on our students as well. When we move into our student achievement and teacher development, I am working to increase the teacher leadership and professional development just amongst my faculty and my staff. I have replaced all faculty meetings with professional development. I can get across to faculty what they need to hear through an email. So I have channeled communication. They get a morning message every day, and in that message is anything that I would typically share through a faculty meeting. So they're learning to rely on that, and then we can set aside what would have been a faculty meeting for more professional development opportunity that's tailored to what they need, and using my lead teachers and my specialists within my building to be able to lead that. So I think that's helpful, and the teachers seem to really appreciate that approach. We have really defined our student data analysis process, and so when we are meeting to talk about instruction or to talk about data, we're able to talk very specifically about subject data. So we can talk about content, we can talk about science. At specific meetings, we have meetings set aside to talk about literacy, and then a separate one set aside to talk about math. But we've really structured our VTSS process through the SAT team meeting process. So when we're talking about individual students, we're doing that through more of our SAT team process, not during those PLC data meetings where we're needing to talk about whole groups and subgroups of students. So really just defining the two different ways that we're working through VTSS to address student needs, both as subgroups and whole groups versus individual students, and how we need to put in supports and interventions for specific students. We have changed. I talked a little bit about the need to address our students with disabilities in reading, and that is an area that we need to improve. So I have increased the co-teaching opportunity between my special education teachers and the time that they're spending in class with the language arts teachers. I think that Dr. Oliver Eggert was talking about balanced instruction. That's what I'm speaking about here. So instead of my special education teachers pulling out students for extended periods of time to work with them, the special education teachers are spending more time in the classroom co-teaching with the teacher and spending more time in that curriculum, in a setting where they can get that instruction within the classroom. Still pulling out based on their needs and targeting their concerns as well, but being able just to spend more time in the classroom co-teaching and collaborating. So we're looking forward to seeing how that affects our data and seeing what progress we get from that. Our science instruction, through our grand renovation this summer, we were able to restructure a resource room where we house all of our science materials now. So there is one central place in our new Connect Annex, and it is a resource room. It is not only our book room. It was a massive project, but there's a book room lining the outside of it, but along the inside, we have organized all of our hands-on science kits. Our IAs, it was a huge undertaking, and then they helped with that through the summer. It was intentional that they would help with that because they are also supporting putting together those items that teachers need when they are planning for those hands-on activities. So just making that more accessible, making it open and ready for teachers to be able to get to that. It saves time in their planning for it. And they have one central location that they can go and find all of those resources without having to dig through boxes and search. So we're hoping that that's going to really increase their use of those hands-on science kits. The other thing that we have done to increase those hands-on experiences in critical thinking, I have increased my science time. So just the master schedule itself now allows for more time, especially in 4th and 5th grades, to be able to deliver that content. But I've also partnered it with my math time because we do feel like there needs to be some data analysis in addition to what they were doing in their science instruction. So by partnering it and with the math time, they're able to carry some of it over and do some cross-curricular work that way. Teachers were very receptive to that. We actually, our first day that we came back to school, we actually were in this room instead of in our building. And so the teachers and myself spent about an hour on the master schedule collaborating. I had created what I felt like was a good place to start, and then I used the teacher teams to then work through that master schedule to look and see how it would best support them being able to expand their science instruction and be able to allow for that cross-curricular time. And that is what my team and I came up with. So it was a great collaborative work that I think is going to carry through the school year and have great improvements in our data based on that change. We are also doing tutoring. We are structuring it a little different than we did last year. While I feel like it was very successful last year, just as Dr. Oliver Eggert said, we were getting it off the ground. We were learning about it as we were building it. And so this year we can be a little more intentional with it. One of the messages we're really sending to families is, yes, you've missed a day and we can send homework and you can make up that work, but you have to make up that instruction, because ultimately your student can make up the work, we can get the grade for that work, but they missed face-to-face instruction. So an absence is an absence, and if you were sick, that's okay, but you still missed a lesson. You still missed that instruction. So we're really trying to partner that with our tutoring program and make that a little more fluid, where if we do have a student who's out for 5 days because they had an absence, then they can come to a targeted tutoring session 1, 2, or 3 times and be able to receive the instruction that they missed. So, it is about the absence, but it's really about the missed instructional time. So we're just trying to create a little more focus on that.
I just had a few comments. I can appreciate turning meetings into emails.
Yep.
And I feel like a lot of the younger staff, older staff might appreciate having that face-to-face, but a lot of the younger generation coming in, you hear that a lot. Oh, this meeting could have been an email.
Yes.
So I think that's a great idea. Just providing more time. We're talking about not having that time in the workday. That does add time back into the day. Additionally, if there's any events that any of the principals are having, any of the schools, I don't want to speak for the board, but I would certainly appreciate an invitation, because we would like to engage with you all in those events and be present with you all as well. So I know it's a lot to add an additional thing to your duties, but I certainly would appreciate having that ability to be present and support you all in that way too.
Thank you.
I'm not the younger generation, but I was going to say, if I had a dime
Me
for
either.
every time as a teacher I said, this faculty meeting should have been an email.
Yeah.
So bravo. I love it.
They received that well. You want an answer? Yes. So I am.
Could please.
Yes, absolutely. I am alone in my building. So if you asked me the greatest challenge, I would say that I'm in a K-5 school. Yes, we're a small school, but it is just me. So I think the biggest challenge for me is being able to meet all of those needs, both the faculty and the students, as just one person. And what I've had to realize through last year and this year is I can't do that by myself, which means that I have to build the capacity of my staff. And that's what I'm working very hard to do. We have natural leaders in our building. We have strong curriculum leads in our building. We did do some shifting of different positions, because it naturally happened that way, that I had a teacher who wanted to move to 5th grade. That teacher happens to be my science lead, and so that was a good move for us, because now I can rely on her, because I can't be at every one of those meetings, but she can, and she is very passionate about science. And so I have a 3rd reading specialist that's part of my reading specialist team, who is also very strong in literacy, and has just come out of the classroom, so has some very recent experience that way. So I think for me, just knowing that I can't do it all, which is not an easy pill to swallow, but it's just the reality of it. So being able to build the people around me and trust that we all have the same vision and that we're all moving in the same direction with the same goal is probably one of the bigger challenges. And what you all have already done, I would reiterate the support of a student support coach, the partnership with Chrysalis and TDT. when I'm in a classroom and I'm trying to get involved and be a part of the instruction, which is really where we need to be as part of instructional leaders, being able to have those people in the building to support students who are dysregulated or who are struggling, and allowing me to continue on with what I need to do with instruction is really a valuable resource for us.
One more additional question for you. So your math numbers are, let's just say they stand out.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Well, my teachers are serious about what they do, not that anyone else isn't, but I can tell you when I go in classrooms, the math instruction is, it's hands-on. You know, they're using manipulatives. We were able to get an influx of additional manipulative kits, and the teachers welcomed that because they are using it. I would say that, you know, we've spent more time strengthening our math instruction where our literacy has changed over the past several years. And so, you know, it is an area of strength for us, but I think it's just, you know, the development of my staff is stronger there right now than where we are with literacy, just because of the changes that we've had, you know, over the past years. But and I mean, when you walk in, you can see what's happening.
I just
and
didn't know if you had a secret weapon or maybe.
Yeah, I'm not sharing. No. Because nobody's leaving Gordon Barber. We're working on staff retention. So.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could make one more comment about Mrs. Quintern's attending event suggestion. Did we not have before an idea to meld the calendars together? And there was some issue with getting that to happen. Did we get that fixed? So everything's on a single calendar?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So maybe those of us who are not the younger generation could get a nudge about here's this month's events or whatever. Look at this calendar. Because I would also like to be able to participate more in things as we're able.
Laura and I can help with that.
Thank you, younger generation.
No problem. Judy, let's put a bow on this.
Sure. Before we wrap up with some celebrations of some gains, I just want to say thank you to the principals. As you've heard tonight, they're an extremely talented and dynamic group, and they've done incredibly hard and complex work with their teams. They also work well together. We collaborate a lot as a team, and I will share that they are quite competitive. So not only do they collaborate and share ideas, but they constantly raise the bar for one another because they all strive to do their best every day, and I can't say enough about how dedicated they are. So moving forward, just a few slides highlighting some of the gains in each of the schools. This is just an overview of all of the schools at once. You've heard it separately, and the reduction in chronic absenteeism. But when you look at that, it's really representative of the hard work that's been done in this area. And then this highlights some of the gains at Lightfoot and Orange Elementary in English, continuing to incrementally increase, and then in math at Lightfoot and Orange Elementary, with some good increases there. Among achievement gaps, we're going to take a look at those next. This is one from Locust Grove Elementary School, where you see holding steady with students with disabilities and then an increase there in the subgroup of Black students. We saw a lot of gains in subgroups at Lightfoot Elementary School. You see really significant gains in students with disabilities in the area of English, and also among several groups in math. And this is Orange Elementary School, where you also see some significant gains. English learners in math, for example, that was a significant gain. And then finally, Gordon Barber Elementary, where we already had some pretty high accreditation ratings by those subgroups, so holding steady there as well.
Mary Lee, Amy, thoughts on the one thing, that if you could identify one facet that helped you realize pretty considerable gains in your subgroups? Where does something like a focus on lesson planning in particular, what is your one thing? Is it that and a combination? What can be modeled?
You can certainly come up and speak to it if you'd like.
Come on up, Marilee.
The schools worked together with our district team very intensely 2 years ago to work on this area.
That's what I was just.
Yeah, this has been a 2-year commitment, so I just didn't know if you could talk a little bit about. Jack essentially asked Randy, what's the magic bullet?
Well,
it doesn't necessarily exist, but.
Well, a big piece for us when I came in, it was the pandemic hit that spring, my first year, and then our SOLs, we didn't have, the scores didn't count that next year. But what we had to do following that was we were in academic review, so we made accreditation through a waiver, but we had our students who are Black and our students with special needs who our subgroups were red, and the data that was very, very low. So we worked really, really hard with the teams to be transparent about what we needed to do with our learning for the state, and then Ms. Jakubik and I went worked with the VDOE regularly, and then our teachers just knew, you have to write lesson plans. You have to meet together. They have to be visible to everybody. So we started that work, which was really hard work, 3 years ago together. And then as we moved into new planning, coming into last year, it was just an expectation. People like plans, they're just there. You just do it. You do it for the kids. You do it so your instruction is targeted. And I think that is a big piece of our success as a team, and having that transparency and working together has been a big piece of that.
And then to foreshadow what everybody will see in 2 weeks at the secondary level, our school that had the most clear needs data-wise last year the year before was Prospect. And Renee Burke basically took the playbook, even though they weren't required to from the state like you all were. We talked about it at an admin staff meeting, and she pretty much ran with the playbook of starting with the importance of working together and building high-quality lesson plans that are more than just a list of activities. And when you see Prospects data in 2 weeks, you are going to see trends that you see at Unionville and Lightfoot with 10, 15, in some cases 20, upwards of 20% gains in overall as well as subgroups. So I guess to go to your point of what is the magic bullet, that's really it. It's as simple and as complicated as that. And there are a lot of factors that are barriers.
And changing the name to Union Foot, that helped, right?
Yes. Sorry, Judy.
No, thank you very much for highlighting that. Just to wrap up, some of the areas of celebration, of course, are the tremendous gains in student attendance, the achievement of subgroups across the board. We do have a few schools that are still focusing on that. And then areas that we're really focusing on this year are science instruction. And then you saw that those scores in math and reading were plateauing a bit. So increasing those scores, and then also trying to move more of our students into the advanced scoring range. So we would like to do that as well. That's one of our goals. So we know that we could not have made that progress without the hard work of our teacher leaders and our teachers in our buildings, but also our families. You heard a lot about the partnering with parents around academic growth. And the teachers and principals have been very focused on that. It's really important to supporting our students. Thank you for your attention tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Thank you, principals, very much.
Dr. Wolfrey, before you step away, I just wanted to commend you on you and your team, and the presentations were quite impressive. The improvements, where we're keeping the standard, the attendance level, even though you didn't like my early question.
I liked it just fine. I knew that we were going to have some data to share with you.
I wanted to know what you thought.
I'm really excited about it.
I love the fact that they're all working together. And it makes me very, very proud to sit here and see the dedicated group that you've put together that really just care about all the young people in Orange County. So it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you all very much.
Another thing to
Thank
highlight
you.
before we move on is we can see the efforts. You know, last year at this time, you were focusing on absenteeism, and it shows. So next year at this time, I'm excited to see what our science scores look like. But it's absolutely great job, each and every one of you.
I'm confident we're going to see huge gains in all those areas. I will wrap up by saying this group, they really do everything from the extra hours to getting pelted with water balloons. They're willing to do it all, so whatever it takes.
I wish I would have known about that event.
Thank you all.
And then finally this evening, just a very quick plug, and I know that I mentioned this to the board via email, but we started today with our OC Champ Awards. And before we even really rolled it out, we had multiple nominations come through. And I'll give you an example of one. We have a few more to go and present tomorrow, but we went over to the high school today. And once we rolled this out, it was a matter of probably 15 minutes, and I had 2 nominations for Neil Ferguson. Okay, so Ferg is one of our school security officers at the high school. That's his title. He is a heck of a lot more than that at the high school, up to and including all the coaching he does. But he was nominated by a student and a community member. The folks were not related. And the things that they wanted him to be recognized for were truly heartening. The student talked about how he makes her feel a part of the community. He's a wonderful role model. The parent talked about the endless hours, the commitment, the dedication, how you always see him there. So the opportunity to let everyone in on the conversation, to send in nominations. And another one that we're going to be delivering tomorrow. The gentleman is aware that we're coming, but it is Mr. Lillard, Rich Lillard, who's a custodian at the high school. And I had an email from a parent of a JV volleyball player's parent who attended a game in a different locality and was appalled by the gum, spilled drinks, junk, trash all over the place in the bleachers. And then said parent attended a JV volleyball game at the field house. And if you have ever been to a game at the field house, if you ever see a gentleman with a hat walking around, mopping, sweeping, taking a trash bag up and down the aisles as people are there, personally getting the trash off of them, this person was incredibly impressed at the commitment, as well as the fact that the care that was being demonstrated with facilities that are funded by the taxpayer dollar. And so we will be going over tomorrow when Mr. Lillard, he begins his shift at 2, so we'll be going to the high school to recognize him. So that's the quality of recommendations and nominations that we're getting. And so it'll be difficult for us to parse through and to figure out who's truly worthy of OC Champ Awards. But it's really been an invigorating experience so far. So just a shameless plug for OC Champ Awards. And that's all this evening for all of our things.
Thank you. It's a good thing I didn't get them confused this week. All right, moving on to 9, board member comments. Any future agenda items that we need to add to the calendar or the agenda for next time?
Just all of the policies that we passed on tonight. Additionally, I would like to have conversation about our legislative priorities.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Moving on to board member comments. Anything there?
I had just a couple of things I wanted to quickly highlight. I became aware yesterday, actually, that the VDOE is sponsoring a webinar with Suzanne Yunkin and Dr. Jonathan Haidt, who is the author of The Anxious Generation, regarding the Executive Order 33, the cell phone policy. And next Thursday night, the 19th of September from 7 to 9, the two of them are going to have a webinar from 7 to 8 together, and then community conversations within different localities from 8 to 9. And schools can sign up to participate. The closest one that's on the list currently this can all be found on the VDOE website, is Madison County High School is going to offer that as a webinar. And also in Charlottesville, they're offering it. And I don't know if we had any interest in looking into it, but we can look online if anybody would like to do that here and offer it in Orange County. But the feedback at the state level is accepted on the draft guidance up until this Sunday, this September 15th. So if anybody wants to offer feedback at the state level before their draft guidance comes out. But I feel like we're in a good place. It's working here. So that's good. And then also I referenced earlier the update to the accreditation system. It's really a fascinating process they've been going through, and a lot of focus shifting towards academic performance and changing the way success, I guess, academic success is defined. So they're also accepting feedback on that on the state website. And then finally, September 17th is Constitution Day. And I know that by U.S. code, schools who accept federal money are supposed to celebrate Constitution Day. So I was just, you don't have to answer me tonight, Dr. Wolfrey. I think you're kind of the head honcho on that one. But I'd love to know what we're doing. And you know what? I have this vision. I've mentioned it to Dr. Hornick before. This is Orange County. Montpelier is right there. And I feel like we should lead the nation in what we do on September 17th to celebrate the document that this nation is founded on from 1787. So a year from now, maybe we can have a big bash for Constitution Day. So I'd love to coordinate with whoever's on board with me on that and see what we can come up with. Anybody got a cousin at Montpelier or somebody, what can we do? The whole town, the whole county, the whole school division. I just think it'd be awesome. And we could be on the nightly news for what Orange County's doing. That's it. I'll stop there. Thank you all. Wonderful information tonight.
Anything else?
I had a report out for Head Start.
Oh, yes, ma'am.
The last meeting was actually August 19th, so it's been a bit. But we discussed the budget. We're still looking for signups for the Policy Council. They have a Narcan training October 16th, 4:30 to 6 p.m. That's for the families that are in Head Start. We are still under an attendance plan, but we've revamped the recruitment. We've spent more money trying to garner more students for the programs. An issue that we run into is a lot of students, their families are over the income threshold. And the federal government's very stringent on that cap. They will have completed the hearing and vision screenings within 45 days for every student. There's going to be one staff member retiring in early Head Start, and they're looking for a replacement. They would like to attend the Virginia Head Start Association Conference. It's 3 days in October. The early Head Start SPED team, they noticed that there's more kids with special needs starting than ever before. So 23 students, which is over the 10% threshold. We need to make sure that we have the right resources, but they're confident and feel that right now we do have those. So that concludes my report out for Head Start, and our next meeting is next Monday.
Thank you. All right. Moving on, closed session certification.
Pursuant to 2.2-3711A of the Code of Virginia, the Orange County School Board will convene a closed meeting for the following: discussion of personnel or the performance of a division employee as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A1 of the Code of Virginia for resignation, termination, transfer, employment, salary adjustment, and retirement of employees. Also, discussion of pupil personnel as authorized by Section 2.2-3711A2 for waiver of compulsory attendance.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. We're in closed session. I'd like to call this meeting back to order. Sorry, I almost missed that part. Ms. Dawson, can I have closed session certification, please?
Whereas the Orange County School Board has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and whereas 2.2-3712D of the Code of Virginia requires certification by this school board that such closed meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law, now therefore be it resolved that the Orange County School Board hereby certifies that to the best of each member's knowledge, 1, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed, and 2, only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered.
May I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Byram?
Mrs. Anderson?
Aye.
Mrs. Dawson?
Aye.
Mrs. Quintern?
Aye.
Mr. Rickett?
Aye.
Madam Chair, the clerk certifies the vote as follows: 4 yes votes, no votes, and 1 member absent.
Deposition of personnel actions, Dr. Horn?
Yes, ma'am. Recommend approval of the personnel actions as presented in closed session.
May I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the personnel agenda to include resignation, salary adjustment, transfer, and employment of staff, and extracurricular and coaching appointments.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Deposition of pupil personnel actions.
Yes, ma'am. Also recommend approval of our pupil actions as presented in closed session.
Have a motion?
I move to approve the request for waiver of compulsory attendance under the religious exemption for pupil personnel case numbers PP 2024 through PP 2036.
I have a second.
Second.
All those in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
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 All right. If there is nothing else, do we want to wait 11 minutes till it's exactly 10?
No, no, ma'am.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness.
so quick. Yes and no. No, ma'am.
We will fight. Long drive.
Jack was claiming it was 10 o'clock, so I figured we had to wait till we were done at 10.
You won't leave.